The Seventh Tower by Garth Nix. Book 2, Castle. Chapter 8. Tal pushed his back against the tunnel wall, ignoring the heat of the rock, and looked behind. Mila was picking up the finger bone and sliding off the ring. As she touched it, the jewel suddenly blossomed into light, swinging wildly through every color in the spectrum. It was so bright that Tal had to close his eyes. When he opened them again, Mila had closed her hand around the sunstone ring. Light leaked out between her fingers and made her hand translucent. "Give it to me," said Tal. It was what he needed, what he had climbed the Red Tower to get, a new, powerful sunstone, which he could use to become a full chosen, to enter the spirit world of Einar and save his family. No. Mila started to turn around. "Wait!" Tal croaked. He turned around, but Mila was quicker. She had already gone several stretches along the tunnel. "You don't know how to use it, and you'll get lost." Mila kept going. She probably remembered the turns, Tal thought, but he had to have the sunstone. He could always get her another one later. He looked down at his shadow guard. Mila would never forgive him if he used it. But if he didn't... Shadow guard, coughed Tal. "Grab that girl as quick as you can." The shadow guard shot out from under him, growing long and thin like the shadow of a slender giant. One arm grew even longer, and the hand on the end spread wide. It snatched at Mila's ankle and gripped tight. Instantly she rolled on her back, flexed forward, and struck at the shadow with a bone knife that sprung out of her sleeve. But that couldn't hurt the shadow guard, and it held fast. "Traitor!" hissed Mila. "You swore!" Tal had sworn with his own blood and Mila's to get a sunstone for the Far Raiders. He had the triple scar on his wrist to prove it. But he hadn't sworn to hand over the first sunstone they came across. "You swore too," he said, "to help me reach the castle. We aren't really there yet. Besides, that sunstone isn't tuned." Mila hesitated, but only for a second. She thought they were close enough to the castle. Then she started crawling again, dragging the shadow guard with her. "I saved your life," Tal panted out desperately when Mila didn't stop. The shadow guard wasn't strong enough to hold Mila for long, and he didn't want to tell it to hurt her. "You owe me." Mila stopped, as if she had run into a wall. Tal had saved her life when his shadow guard had bound her wounds after the fight with the one-eyed Merwin. Arguably, she had saved his by killing the Merwin, but that was not so certain. "I need that sunstone," coughed Tal. "Come with me, and I'll get you another one. If I can't within 14 sleeps, I'll give it back for the ship and the clan." Mila's knife disappeared up her sleeve. Then she opened her hand. Tal had to shield his eyes from the sunstone light as she threw the ring back to him. 14 sleeps, Mila conceded angrily. "But I no longer owe you a life." "Agreed," said Tal. He picked up the ring and focused his mind on the sunstone. It flared up again, then gradually dimmed as Tal took control. When it was no brighter than the moth lantern, Tal tried the ring on his middle finger. It was too big, so he fastened it to the chain around his neck, next to the chunk of blackened rock that had been his old sunstone. The sunstone in the ring was very old, but it had lost none of its power, lying unused here in the dark. The chosen, for the skeleton must have been a chosen, had made it go dormant before he or she died. That surprised Tal. He knew no chosen of his time brave enough to die alone in the dark, just to save the sunstone. Shadow guard, he muttered. "Come back to me." The shadow guard let go of Mila and hastily retreated, flowing back into a regular shadow. One arm kept moving, waving backward and forward. "What?" Tal asked. His mind felt a bit fuzzy. The shadow guard waved again, and Tal realized it was telling him to hurry. At the same time, he became aware that Mila had caught up to him again, and he hadn't even noticed. He must have blanked out for a few seconds. "Air," Mila gasped. Bad air. She pushed at him. Tal turned and started crawling again. They crawled for what seemed like hours, but couldn't have been more than minutes. Then they were at yet another intersection. Slowly, Tal got out the bone map and tried to work out where they were. The red glow was bright, but not bright enough to read by, and for some reason the moth lantern had dimmed. Tal shook it to liven up the moths, but that didn't work, and the spaces in the weave were as wide as they could go. It was hard work to set the lamp down and get the new sunstone out instead, since Tal's hands seemed to be weighed down and wouldn't go where he told them to. He finally managed it, and after a few bright flashes, he did get the sunstone to shine at a useful level. In its light, he saw that all the luminous moths in the lantern were lying still on the bottom, their green abdomens fading. The moths were asleep, or dead. Sluggishly, Tal passed the lantern back to Mila. It was an ice-carl tool. She would know what to do with it. He looked back at the map. It took some time to remember where they were. A right turn, and then a symbol that might represent a ladder, or perhaps a ramp. A way up, anyway. Tal hoped. Unless they were only at the intersection before that, in which case they should take a left and then a right, but they'd already done that, hadn't they? Tal turned the map the other way. Now that he looked at it, he wasn't sure that he hadn't had it upside down the whole time. "On!" whispered Mila. "We must go on." Tal couldn't remember which way they had turned, but after a while they came to an opening in the tunnel ceiling and a ladder of the same crystal as the crystal wood in the castle. Tal tried to direct a beam of light at it to make it sing, but for some reason he kept missing. Different colored beams shot out everywhere from the sunstone, but none hit. It made Tal laugh. He couldn't help it. A choking giggle came out of him that sounded so strange. He looked around to see whom it might belong to. Dimly, he was aware of Mila pushing past him and starting to climb, then of his shadow guard pulling at him, placing his hands on the ladder and his foot on the lowest rung. The ladder was strangely cool, here where everything was hot. The shock of it cleared Tal's head a little, and he realized with sudden panic that there was something poisonous in the air, fumes from the lava down below that made his head strange and his limbs full of lead. The shadow guard pulled at Tal's wrist, urging him to climb. Mila was only just ahead of him, climbing very slowly. She almost slipped a few times, but the shadow guard was watching her too, and it zipped past to put her feet or hands back on the ladder. Tal started seeing double. He reached for rungs that weren't there, and his fingers closed on air instead of crystal. His arms grew too tired to reach up. Slowly, ever so slowly, he put his legs to the ladder and sat, fumbling with his belt. He couldn't go on, but he could try and strap himself to the ladder so he wouldn't fall. He managed to get his belt around the ladder. Then a final cautious thought made him slip the chain with the sunstone over his head. For an instant, it seemed certain he would drop it before his shadow guard helped his trembling hand push it into the secret pocket inside his sleeve. Then he passed out, only his broad Selski hide belt looped to the ladder, preventing him from falling. Mila lasted a little longer. She made it to a landing 30 stretches above, but that was all. Collapsing onto it, she only just managed to draw her knife, to face death armed, before she passed out as well. The shadow guard made sure Tal's belt was secure, then tried to climb farther up the ladder. But as it passed the landing where Mila lay, it grew thinner and more transparent. A few stretches farther, it was no more than a dark outline, without substance. Reluctantly, it drew back, till it once again seemed like Tal's natural shadow. Nothing could help Tal now.